of the Sunday Times. And this is the headline here, revealed Miliband's dossier on union plot. Just briefly give us the background to this and why it's important.
Well, this relates to the selection of the Labour candidate for the Falkirk constituency. And there was a lot of accusations being made that the Unite Union was fixing the selection. They were fixing the selection by changing the rules, by signing up members at the last minute, by having people signed up to the Labour Party who've actually not agreed to sign up. For example, there's a case on here where somebody's wife is saying, well, actually, I never agreed to sign up, but I've received a membership form over here. So what happened? There was a police inquiry, and the police inquiry said nothing wrong had been done. However, there was an internal inquiry set up by Ed Miliband to see what had gone on, and that report he had never published. And today we've actually seen a copy of that report which says there was forgery, there was coercion, there was trickery, there was manipulation. And the key point is this: the reason there could not be an inquiry into this is because all the witnesses withdrew from giving evidence. And so therefore you can't say one way or the other, but there is a real question: why would so many people withdraw from giving evidence? And I would say an important point here is this the extent to which Unite want to go, to get their people put into positions? Or is this the same thing Labour want to do with uniting their money and having their policies? It is quite worrying, it's a real concern, and I think we have to wait and see what happens, but there is real concern here in terms of political legitimacy.
And can I come in here as well, because I think that the allegations that are being made and the quotes that are coming from this report are very serious, and as a union member myself, I worry about the accusations that are being made. I think what we have to look at, though, is what Ed Miliband did in the wake of these accusations. He set up an internal report that was very detailed, and then he launched the biggest union reform programme that the Labour Party has really ever seen, giving up almost £8 million in funding to be able to change that law, and announcing huge and sweeping party changes, including new primaries, for example, in London. So he did take action. What's interesting about this piece, and I think it's a valid point, is why isn't the Labour Party publishing this report? And I think that the issue comes down to what you were talking about the confidentiality of sources. When the Labour Party does an internal report, it can't just tell them, look, you can talk to us in confidence.
Sure, they can redact names. That's not difficult, is it? They
can do that, and also I think it's about transparency and also getting people to have trust in politics.
Which is crucial a year away or so from an election.
Absolutely, and for him to say, look, this is what went on, it is wrong, we are going to distance ourselves from it, but he's not prepared to do that, but I think it's important that we have that transparency.
Yeah, but I think also we just have to say that you can redact names, but in a small Labour Party environment, sometimes it's very obvious who's talking, and if you've told someone you won't be publishing it and then you do, that has repercussions for if you need to investigate something again. What we have to look at here is what Ed Miliband's done now, which is a huge union reform programme, bigger than anything we ever expected, and a massive party political reform programme.
One final point I would make on that, which is important, is I think we need clarification, is why did all those witnesses who agreed to give evidence then suddenly withdraw from giving evidence, which then ensured that the inquiry collapsed, and therefore you can't have finding from it? I think those answers need to come about.
Okay, let's have a look at your next choice, Rowena. This is on the front page of The Observer. Top doctors warn of worst winter in hospitals as A&E crisis grows. We do see something similar around this time of year, don't we, as people get ill and flu hits, but a real warning that this could be worse than ever this year. Why? What's so bad this year?
Well, as you said, it does get worse during the winter time. People get that winter flu, they come flooding into hospitals, but the figures that are being reported here are so shocking. A 43% increase in people who are waiting more than 4 hours in A&E departments in 2 years. That's stunningly huge, and part of that will be an ageing population and more pressure being put on a hospital, but I think the other part of this story is huge cuts being faced by hospitals and a massive NHS reform programme being put in place by the government. And I think that at this point the coalition has to take some responsibility for the changes that are happening.
I think that's quite right, because if you look at the funding that we've put forward for the National Health Service, 12.7 billion has been ring-fenced funding for the National Health Service. That's there. It's more than that was the opposition was supporting. So that's there. The problem that you have with A&E, and one has to be frank with it, is how do we avoid people going to the A&E in the first place? For example, there's a lot of people who turn up on A&E who should not be there on A&E. We have to make sure that, like what the Prime Minister is saying, is having more doctor surgeries, being opened longer, so people can go there, they can get the help, they can have that at different hours of the day. I accept, there is an issue with this, we are looking at that. But the other point where it refers to the 4 hours, I saw the figures from NHS England, which said 96% of the people who wanted to go A&E were seen, whereas in Wales, under a Labour administration, that was down to 85%, below average. in terms of what is acceptable. So yes, I accept there are issues. We have put funding there. We are making sure that where changes need to be will have to be made to ensure that the A&E is fit for purpose.
Or where I would disagree with you is that the fact that the Labour Party would not be opposing extra funding for the NHS in the way that you suggest.
They did in 2010.
Yeah, not in
they did not vote for it.
Okay, we could get into a very big argument about this, but I think that all the viewers know that the NHS was created by Labour and has always been Brexit and had massive investment under that party and hasn't under the Conservatives.
Well, let me put it this way, but if I just simply say we create the NHS and you put the label on the NHS and say that's it, that doesn't work, and that's what's happened with Labour. If you look at mid-stats, what happened there? Thousands of people died under a Labour administration government when they ought not to have died, and therefore we made those changes.
The story we're looking at tonight is a 43% increase in A&E waits. That does not come about when you're putting in extra funding that's adequate, which your government should be doing. Where I would agree with you, though, is that we need to look at prevention, because there are far too many people who are coming in unnecessarily, or people who should have had adaptations made to their homes so they don't fall down, particularly if they're elderly, and they wouldn't have to end up with us. The other issue that this article really points out is the issue of exit blocks, because there are too many older people particularly who are left waiting after they've been seen in A&E departments because they can't go home because they don't have the social care packages in place. And one thing that Labour really wants to do is make sure that the NHS is integrated with social care, and I think that that would be a real benefit.
Well, we're going to hear a lot more in the next 15 months about NHS policies, funding, etc. Let's move on though for tonight.